Mr. Edwards, we know there's a lot to say about the immigration system in this country, but we're looking for something specific here. What two things would need to be included in an immigration bill for you to vote in favor of it?
Well, one thing is we have to secure our border. So I would look for information in a bill that would respect the dignity of our immigration system. I understand why people want to come to this country. This is a very generous nation. And it's great to live in a country where so many people want to come to. But we have a process by which we bring people in. So the first thing we need to do is make sure our border is secure and we can bring people into this country. Also look at the H-1B visas to make sure that we're bringing people that will speak to a need that our country has, but not just an open border system and people violating the law. We have to get back to a place where we respect law in this country. And I think that's the best way to address our immigration system.
And Mr. Pappas, the question to you, what must-haves are there in an immigration reform bill to earn Chris Pappas's support?
Well, we do need to make important investments in border security, including in manpower and technology. We can have comprehensive immigration reform that adheres to the values of this country without playing on people's fears. And I think there are bipartisan consensus in Congress right now for some major pillars of what could become immigration reform, including allowing the dreamers who know no other country than the United States of America, who were brought here as children, to become citizens of this country, including reforming the visa process so that more seasonal and guest workers can come and be a part of our economy here in New Hampshire and across the country. I think we can get immigration reform done in a bipartisan way that keeps this country safe, that sets up a fair and orderly process, and also adheres to the values of this country and understands that immigrants built the United States.
Mr. Pappas, if you had a job opening at your restaurant, and if an admitted undocumented immigrant trying to support a family came to you looking for a job, what would you do? Would you hire that person?
I've actually been put in that situation and have not hired an individual under those circumstances. And I think that we need to make sure we have laws on the books that protect this country, but also allow for individuals to seek asylum here, to apply for citizenship in an orderly process, because our economy and our future depends on having a legal system of immigration in place.
And Mr. Edwards, we saw from the opening you have a long history in law enforcement. If you pulled over a family and found out they're in this country illegally, would you hold them and turn them over to ICE?
Absolutely. And the reason I would do that, once again, this is about leadership. This is about enforcing our laws and standing up for what's right. If you watch the D.C. Democrats, like Nancy Pelosi and the rest, they're not interested in securing our border. They're not. And I think it's so disingenuous for Chris to stand here and say he would stand up for his party when it comes to some of these issues. He has not. He has not done that. Even here in this state, he has not stood up to his party.
Mr. Pappas, you can have 30 seconds.
Well, I'm not sure he answered that question, but I have stood up to my party. I have voted against my governor and members of the legislature from time to time when I'm in public office. And this is a time in the history of our country where we're required to put country first and stand up to forces in Washington, D.C., you know, the corporations and special interests and the parties that have outside power and influence. And I'm doing this. I'm running for office as a way to give back to my home state. And I'm trying to make a difference for the people of New Hampshire. That's ultimately who I'm accountable to.